All right, just give it a couple more minutes before we get started. I know we've got a few more people that are going to be logging on here. Then we can get going. All right, well, we can probably get started here. So first of all, I wanted to, oops, what's happening here? There we go. So first of all, I wanted to thank you all for taking the time to be here today and introduce Kimberly Poffenroth, the VP of Business Development and Market Analysis for Alberta with Urban Analytics. So thanks so much, Kim, for being here today. She's got a fantastic presentation for us to go through here. And I guess what a roller coaster the past few months have been with the decline in oil prices and the COVID-19 pandemic. I guess you could say we got hit with a bit of a double whammy here in Calgary. But it's really been amazing to see the resiliency of Calgary. And as you'll hear in the presentation today that Kim's doing, the real estate market here is still holding strong, and we're seeing more and more sales and activity as the city starts to reopen. So just before we jump into Kimberly's presentation, I wanted to give you a quick update on what's happening in Calgary and fill you in on an exclusive Toronto agent incentive that we'll have available for both you and your clients. All right, so we're at our presentation center for Theodore here in the heart of Kensington, and we're starting to see people out walking around in the neighborhood. The streets are starting to feel more alive. Although we aren't completely back to normal, you can still go out for lunch, sit in a restaurant, you can go to a spin class, and you can even still get a haircut, which is great, something we couldn't do as of a couple weeks ago. So today we're sitting over 30% sold, and we're on track for possessions in late 2022. And with construction starting later this year, we're over with over 65% of our homes priced under $500,000 and a low 5% deposit, coupled with no land transfer tax, no development charges, and low closing costs. The Theodore has had a fantastic success with out-of-province purchasers looking to take advantage of an affordable investment opportunity that cash flows, something that's such a rare find to find these days in markets like Toronto and Vancouver. So the Theodore is a Build Calgary Award finalist. We are very excited to receive nominations for the following 6 categories with the Theodore. Best New Multifamily Plan up to $699 with 2 of our models. Best New Multifamily Plan 700 to 899 square feet. Also with our G model, our beautiful 3-bedroom corner suite, the 900 to 1299, and Best New Multifamily Plan for a 1,300 square foot penthouse I plan. So along with the nominations for these plans, we are also nominated for Best Sales and Information Center Detached and Best Multifamily Community Concept, which was very exciting for us. So a little bit about Kensington. If you're not familiar with the neighborhood, Kensington is Calgary's most sought after inner city community, and it's no surprise. The Kensington community thrives in Calgary, and when compared directly to other inner city communities, as you can see, comes out on top in terms of accessibility and amenities. And Sotheby's International has cited Calgary as one of the very best locations in Calgary, top 4 most walkable neighborhoods. We're 26 meters to a grocery store, 30 meters to a coffee shop, 50 meters to transit, and that transit will take you into the inner city core within 6 minutes. Plus, you also have 2 of our major post-secondary institutions within a 15-minute commute on the C train. So really, you have accessibility to all parts of Calgary, which makes it a great spot for investment. Our post-secondary institutions that are within a 15-minute commute, we have the Southern Alberta Technical Institute, which we refer to here in Calgary as SAIT, and we've also got the University of Calgary. So SAIT is 1 stop on the LRT from the Theodore, and the University of Calgary is 3 stops on the LRT from Theodore. So combined with both of those post-secondary institutions, we've got over 90,000 enrollments, and over 90% of those enrollments are Canadian student enrollments, so interprovincial students, which is fantastic for Calgary. And what we find is a lot of them do look to be close to their the schools there, close to the campuses. And in Kensington, we definitely tick all those boxes for people. And then being within a 6-minute commute to downtown, we're definitely starting to see more young professionals that look to live close to downtown cut their commute. So our labor market is definitely something that's diversifying as well. And like any city, Calgary has established an emerging industry cluster that as we diversify away from oil and gas. So we continue to see growth in industries like life sciences, financial services, creative industries, tourism, which is huge. And again, we see our established industries like agribusiness, transportation, logistics, and energy. Those businesses also continue to thrive, again, as our labor market diversifies. And over the past few months too, the government of Alberta has approved and is moving forward with 2 of our pipelines. So we actually just got news the other day that the Keystone XL pipeline is now under construction as of July 3rd, which is fantastic, creating over 6,500 jobs. And the Trans Mountain pipeline, which just improves, both these pipelines improve access to the oil markets. The Trans Mountain pipeline started construction in December of last year. And for June, as Kim will touch on, we're definitely starting to see activity and sales pick up in Calgary. One of the largest real estate brokerages in Alberta, CIR, they've got claim to the largest market share in Calgary. They've recorded their most active June since 2014. So they broke their previous record by nearly 30 sales, which is fantastic news for our market and definitely, again, shows the resilience of the real estate market in Calgary. So before Kim jumps on, I'm going to turn things over to Andrea Irwin on our sales team at Theodore, and she's going to touch on a few of our most popular floor plans, and a few things that she loves about them, and also on great incentives that we have available.
Hi, thanks, Kaylee. Hi, everyone. I'm Andrea, sales associate at the Theodore. I'm going to go over some of our hot picks today, one being our D2A, which is one of our newer plans. This is a custom plan for any investor. It's got one of our highest returns, with that flex room being able to be used either as a den or second bedroom. It's also west facing and offered on floors 3 through 9, so your views will go all the way clear across the city and brings in one of the highest returns. And our next of our hottest picks here is our A1 plan. So this is a garden suite. It's quite unique because it has 11-foot ceilings, which, as I'm sure most of you know, is unheard of in a condo. You also get your own private street entrance, which is great for any dog owner, anyone, even perhaps a client that's looking for an Airbnb. And we only have one left of this plan. So it'll probably go pretty quickly. And this as well brings back a pretty high return. And then, of course, our fantastic incentives. So we do pay the 4% commission to our Toronto brokers. You will get half of that in 60 days, and then the going firm the other half 45 days after closing. Plus, we are offering bonuses as you bring in extra deals. So the more deals, the more bonus you get. And then we also are offering some great incentives for your clients. So for our 1 to 2 bedrooms, we are offering our 2-year rental program, or they're welcome to take $8,000 cash back. And with our rental program, what we will do is we hire a property management company, and they will find your client a tenant, and they will run your property for 2 years, and we will cover that cost. And we're offering that for our larger suites as well, the same 2-year rental program. But with this one, you'll get, they can also take the $10,000 cash back. And then, of course, all the pros of buying in Alberta. We do not have land transfer tax. We don't have development charges, assignment fees, and our closing costs are minimal compared to you guys up there in Ontario. So lots of pros to buy in Alberta. And then, yeah, get in touch. So this year you can call or text this number, or of course we're available by email. We can do Zoom one-on-one meetings with your clients, and hopefully maybe they'll come to Calgary eventually and we can do an actual one-on-one in the presentation center. So feel free to reach out to us with any questions, and we're always available.
Awesome, thanks, Andrea. So we're going to turn things over to Kimberly here. She's got a fantastic presentation for you today on what happened in Q2 in the Calgary market. So turn things over to Kim. And Kim, I believe you've got time for questions at the end of your presentation. So if you want to just pop your questions into the chat box there, or raise your hand at the end, we'd be happy to go through them. So I will stop sharing my screen and let you share your screen, Kim.
All right, I will share my screen here. Oh, it just says, Kaylee, that you have to enable me to screen share.
Sure.
Not sure how that works. While you're doing that, I'll just say I used to live in the Kensington neighborhood throughout my time at University of Calgary, and it's my favorite place in the city by far. So definitely a great community. How many of you guys who are tuning in are familiar or have been to the Calgary market at all? Feel free to write it in the chat if you want, or okay.
All right. I'm sorry here, Kim. So what I'll do is I can share my screen here with you, and then everywhere I can change it for you as we go through. So there we go.
Okay. Perfect. All right, so just starting with the Calgary market. So today I'm going to be talking on both the multifamily, the new multifamily home and purpose-built rental markets in Calgary. Feel free to ask any questions. I will try to keep this chat open just to the side of me here, but definitely ask away. So just to give you a little bit of a background, so Kaylee had asked me to come in and talk about the Calgary market. This is something that I have been doing to a lot of industry stakeholders, as my team at Urban Analytics does track and analyze all of the data on the market. So we are a market research and advisory firm. And with that, the new multifamily home market that we are tracking on an ongoing basis really consists of the townhome, concrete condominium, and wood frame condominium projects across all of Calgary. Our offices are also located in Edmonton and Vancouver. So we are out and about in Western Canada. Just to give you guys in Toronto a little update and a little tidbit of information, we are expanding to Toronto. We're going to be launching out there in the fall time. So I'll definitely have some Toronto stats for you. And let me tell you, as I go through today's presentation, you're going to see very different numbers on the Calgary market than you do in the Toronto market. However, what I see or what I take from that is really the opportunities that Calgary has compared to these other big cities in Canada. In terms of the deals that you can get right now, the prices, and the living conditions that you get here in Calgary compared to other markets across the country. Our principals, they are based in Vancouver. The Vancouver market is also completely different. I still believe Calgary has the most potential in terms of opportunity for investors for living. The living costs are lower. So I will be going over each of those stats. But first, I'll give you just a little bit of a background on Urban Analytics itself. If you don't mind just going to the next slide here, Kaylee. Thank you. So as I mentioned, we do data analysis. We do have an online platform called New Home Source Live, and this is where we collect all of our data from. So everything that I will be talking about today, it is all primary research. It actually includes us going out to the sales centers, us speaking with sales representatives and with the developers themselves to collect information as to what's happening. We then consolidate this information and enter it into New Home Source Live, which is available to industry stakeholders on a subscription basis. So the people who have access to our data really range from realtors to developers to banks, financial lenders, really anyone who wants some insight as to what's happening on the market itself. And we do separate it by, of course, the for sale product, the rental product, and soon to be our land product, which is already available in Vancouver. As you see here, the couple tabs going into that new home source square, purpose-built rental, multifamily are big ones, but we're also actively tracking what's up and coming in the market, which I will be touching on as well. So we are tracking the development permits on a weekly basis. So it's really good to have that concept as to what your competition is going to be in a couple of years' time, not just what it is right now, today. So as I go over the stats, I'll touch on the up and coming changes that we have seen in the Calgary market and what's happened overall. So that's urban analytics itself. And as Kaylee mentioned, I do run the business development side for the Alberta team. However, I still do the market analysis as well. So I'm often out at the sales centers speaking to the sales staff. So I am able to get that grasp as to the trends that are occurring, which I will be touching on today too. Don't mind just going to the next one. So before I really dive into the numbers though, 2020 has thrown our entire world through whirlwind. It's like put us in the dryer and press spin on high. And it's been a little chaotic, but it has across the world. And one of the biggest things that I do see is that with this chaos that's come from COVID, we're seeing different markets in different cities across Canada, across the US, react in different ways. In Calgary particularly, we've done a pretty good job at containing COVID. We have now opened up restaurants, bars. We haven't seen a big spike yet, but of course, that's going to be on everyone's mind for the foreseeable future. However, what that has led to is these unique positions to be in where we have some of the lowest interest rates and different opportunities that we can jump on to make the best out of this current time. Now, what we did see on the multifamily side is that the majority of sales centers, as did offices, as did really everything across the board, shut down for quite a while. Kaylee, how long were you guys shut down for?
We were shut down, I think, from mid-March until the beginning of June. So it was a couple of weeks for sure.
Yeah. Okay, that's pretty standard. I think we collected stats and it was like 75% of all sales centers closed down for over 2 months during this time. So as I'm talking about the Q2 stats, please keep in mind that these stats that I will be sharing today are factoring in 2 months of sales center closures. Now, there were still sales that were occurring by appointment only, but for the most part, most people in Calgary didn't leave their house for a couple of months. So while I'm going over the stats, I was saying to Kaylee this morning, I anticipated COVID to take a bigger hit than it actually did on the sales in the market, which is a really positive sign in my eyes. However, until there's a vaccine out, there's going to be some concerns when it relates to COVID, but if you're looking at it in a Calgary as a whole perspective, majority of sales centers have now reopened. They've added different precautions in place. There's still going to be some people who are too scared to shop for a home, but for the most part, you are seeing people get back out there, which is good, of course. So it's hard to talk about it without mentioning COVID. A couple other changes that will continue to play a part in the market, of course, have been these ongoing mortgage changes. The Calgary market in 2018, when the stress test was implemented, did take a big hit. New home sales right after the stress test was implemented back in 2018 dropped by 32%. Pretty substantial considering sales this current quarter were down just 30% with COVID. So the stress test actually had a bigger impact on the Calgary market in 2018 than COVID has, which is crazy to me. However, on a more positive note, things have relaxed. People have adjusted to that stress test implementation. CMHC did put out that home prices were expected to drop up to 18%. That has been a trend that we've been hearing, but that's not what the data has been telling us. So while that prediction's out there, it's hard to put that across the board. And in terms of the new multifamily home market, we have not seen substantial price drops like that. If that's going to come, my anticipation is that that's going to be in the older resale product, if and only if it happens. But I've yet to see proof on that. If anything, we have seen June be a pretty positive month across the board for both resale and new multifamily home market. One of the other things with the new CMHC rules that came out July 1st, tightening them once again, is that the secondary insurance brokers do not follow the CMHC rules. So it is actually going to give some opportunities for these secondary insurers to come out and draw a larger presence out there. So that's what the mortgage changes. So just another thing to keep in mind as I'm going through the stats that will, of course, play a bit of a role. And as mentioned earlier, incentives, I have to say the incentives that Graywood is offering is quite impressive. I think it's like just to have that 2-year rental program in place is huge. Definitely an amazing opportunity. So I'm quite excited to see how it takes off here, but incentives, we haven't seen incentives across the market, but not to this degree. So what you're typically seeing is like some upgrades, some, you know, short-term kind of financial help in terms of incentives, really understanding what's happening in the COVID market. But to see all of these combined into one is very unique. So I do have to say that stands out for me. And I did mention this earlier, but the low interest rates are historically low right now. I do think it's a great opportunity to buy in the Calgary market. I personally just purchased because I track the market every day, and you know, yes, it's a time where there is uncertainty, but sometimes uncertainty means opportunities. And so I looked at it in the way that like this is an opportune time to actually purchase, because we won't see interest rates as low as they are in the years to come. I don't anticipate, of course I can't predict the future, but that's my guess right now. And with the interest rates, the current price points and the cost of living in Calgary and the incentives, it makes it a bit of a no-brainer for myself at least. And of course, before I really dive into the stats, as I was talking about with the Calgary multifamily market, there has been a little bit of a shift in terms of who's actually buying in the most recent months. I'd be really curious to hear your take on the Theodore, but what I have found across the board, we just finished our second quarter tours, was a very different sense than what I would say took over the majority of last year. So last year, these are kind of the 4 big groups we see in the multifamily product type. So investors, young professionals, or first-time home buyers, I kind of classify them all together, even if it's, you know, your second home, maybe you're upgrading a little, but not to that final home yet. Divorcees is a very common home buyer in the Calgary market that we hear about when we're tracking multifamily. And of course, downsizers, right-sizers, or empty nesters.
Oops, sorry.
Sorry. So what that...
Sorry, Kim.
No worries. Just lost the screen here. So with those 4 categories, last year for 2019, it seemed to us like the first-time homebuyer, kind of young professional, was a little bit more hesitant to buy or not ready to commit. And a big reason for that was this boom in purpose-built rental, which I will be talking on later. As of recently, we have actually seen more of an increase in that young first-time, young professional buyers across the board. I think the biggest reason for that is the low interest rates. I think another big reason for that is people, you know, who weren't sure of what they